There is one event from World War II that is hard to forget by many until today. Books and movies were made about it, and its impacts on Chinese history are evident today. This is the Nanjing Massacre, and today we'll discover the events that unfolded in this tragic event in World War II. Hi, welcome to our channel. This is Eventful Insights, and today we'll continue our exploration of the significant events of World War II. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the Nanjing Massacre and the unimaginable stories and facts that you need to know about it. Before we begin, have you ever heard of the Nanjing Massacre before? How familiar are you with it? Tell us in the comments below. Now let's begin. During the latter part of 1937, spanning 6 weeks, the Imperial Japanese Army committed horrific acts resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands, encompassing both military personnel and civilians, within the confines of the Chinese city of Nanjing. The atrocities have been labeled as the Nanjing Massacre, or the Rape of Nanjing, due to the fact that tens of thousands of women and girls endured sexual assaults during the harrowing events. The Japanese sought to capture Nanjing, China's capital, believing it would weaken the region and aid in conquering nearby territories. After taking control, they were ordered to devastate the city by their commanding general. Knowing that controlling China's capital would enhance their power, Japanese soldiers engaged in looting, burning, killing, and sexual assault, leading to the tragic Nanjing Massacre. But their invasion largely stemmed from Japan's aim of being taken seriously as a formidable military power. Japan was tired of being seen as a second-rate military power, and after rejections from the West, such as their request for freer immigration to Western countries like the US and Australia, and later being banned from the US, Japanese military leaders' motivation for invasion was fueled. So amidst the ongoing Sino-Japanese War in 1937, Japanese forces approached the capital of the Republic of China in early December. Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the Republic, was well aware, following the invasion and capture of Shanghai in August, that Nanjing would inevitably succumb to Japanese control. Following the Battle of Shanghai, Kai-shek, anticipating the approaching Japanese forces, chose to evacuate. The official explanation from the Chinese government was that they couldn't afford to risk their top military personnel in a potential siege of the capital. However, publicly, military commander Tang Shengji proclaimed that Nanjing would not surrender to the Japanese and that the Republic of China was prepared to fight to the end. While technically accurate, this statement omitted crucial details regarding the defense of the city. Nanjing was left to be guarded by a relatively small contingent of soldiers as the government retreated further inland. Tang managed to assemble around 100,000 troops to defend the city, but many of them were poorly trained. Additionally, the troops were placed under the supervision of an international committee tasked with ensuring the safety of Nanjing. On December 9, 1937, the Japanese forces reached the gates of the city and initiated a campaign of psychological warfare by dropping leaflets into Nanjing. These leaflets conveyed a stark ultimatum: surrender within 24 hours or face merciless consequences upon invasion by the Japanese military. Numerous Japanese soldiers, fatigued, undisciplined, and hungry after weeks of grueling combat during the Battle of Shanghai, harbored a thirst for revenge due to the loss of their comrades in the earlier battle. With no indication of surrender from the city by the December 10th deadline, Japanese forces initiated their invasion from all directions. General Tang Shengji, realizing the city's untenable position and lacking adequate defenses, issued a retreat order for his troops on December 12th amidst heavy artillery bombardment and bombings ravaging the city. Before we continue to the climax of the Japanese forces' attacks, what did you think of the Chinese military leaders' decisions so far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to watch more videos about significant events in history and intriguing mysteries, check out our channel. Let's continue. Shengji's order for retreat proved disastrous. Chinese soldiers resorted to extreme measures to blend in with the civilian population, even forcibly taking clothes and possessions from actual civilians. Many Chinese troops attempting to flee were shot by their own commanding units. In a desperate attempt to impede the Japanese advance, retreating Chinese forces set fire to parts of the city, hoping to minimize the potential destruction. On December 13th, the 6th and 116th Divisions of the Japanese Army breached the city walls and became the first to enter Nanjing. Encountering minimal military resistance, they paved the way for additional troops to enter the city, including 2 Navy fleets that docked along the banks of the Yangtze River. Upon entering the city, Japanese troops launched a pursuit of the fleeing Chinese forces, primarily targeting those escaping to the north. Accounts suggest that the Chinese troops encountered a relentless and one-sided massacre during the final days of resistance. However, some Japanese historians argue that these actions were justified as they perceived the Chinese forces to still pose a significant threat. This pursuit, often referred to as a mopping-up operation, extended to refugees who sought shelter in the Nanjing safety zone, a 3.85 square kilometer area where much of Nanjing's remaining population had congregated. Although nearly 3/4 of the population had already fled, those who remained were confined within the safety zone under Japanese guard. The refugees who managed to escape the city tended to be wealthier residents, whereas those left under Japanese occupation were often poorer and lacked the means to flee upon the invasion. While even some middle and lower-class individuals fled, those who were destitute remained behind to endure whatever brutality the Japanese had planned. The 50,000-strong Japanese invasion force that entered Nanjing in December 1937 initiated a campaign of terror against the remaining Chinese troops in the city. The Japanese regarded these prisoners of war with profound disdain, considering surrender as a shameful act in Japanese culture. Consequently, they subjected these prisoners to inhumane treatment, viewing them as targets for inflicting pain and perfecting their killing techniques. Chinese troops who remained in the city were forcibly driven to the outskirts in truckloads, where the brutality unfolded. Japanese soldiers received instructions to inflict maximum suffering on their captives and to disregard any notions of mercy. Gruesome photographs captured the massacre, depicting Japanese soldiers using living prisoners for bayonet practice, massacring them with machine gun fire, decapitating them, and burning them alive. Within about a week, approximately 40,000 Chinese men, including both prisoners of war and those of draft age, lay dead. Then Japanese troops turned their aggression towards the civilians of Nanjing, regardless of whether they resided within the safety zone. While Japanese division commanders may not have explicitly authorized the ensuing brutality, their failure to intervene effectively condoned these horrific acts. During the occupation of Nanjing, undisciplined and intoxicated groups of soldiers roamed the streets in search of women, subjecting them to brutal rapes in various locations such as streets, stores, and even within their own homes in front of their families. Many of these women were subsequently murdered and mutilated to prevent them from bearing witness against their attackers. Estimates suggest that the number of women sexually assaulted ranged from 20,000 to 80,000, with victims spanning from 10 to 60 years of age, including pregnant women who were not spared from the brutality. Any resistance to the Japanese assaults was met with immediate execution. Japanese troops engaged in arbitrary killings, looting, and arson with impunity. Some accounts detail instances where Japanese soldiers looted stores and then locked patrons and workers inside before setting the buildings ablaze, leaving them to perish. The true death toll was difficult to ascertain due to many Chinese individuals being burned or buried in mass graves after their deaths. Moreover, the destruction of the majority of Japan's wartime records means that the full extent of the brutality inflicted during the 6-week siege of Nanjing may never be fully known. The devastation of Nanjing came to an end as Japanese troops gradually withdrew in the early days of 1938. During this time, a new provisional government was established, and the world stood on the brink of a looming global conflict. General Iwane Matsui expressed regret for the actions of his troops, but no Japanese soldier faced consequences until the end of World War II in 1945. Following Japan's surrender, Japanese officers responsible for the atrocities in Nanjing were brought to trial. General Matsui, along with the Prime Minister of Japan, Koki Hirota, and 5 other war criminals, were convicted and sentenced to death for their roles in the crimes committed in Nanjing. The Nanjing Massacre, documented by the Japanese and investigated by the Allies post-war, is a subject of modern controversy in Japan. 2 main camps exist, those who support the Tokyo trial's findings and those who believe the massacre was fabricated or exaggerated for victors' justice. And those were the horrifying accounts of the Nanjing Massacre. What are your final thoughts on the Nanjing Massacre? Let us know your opinions in the comments below. If you liked watching this video, support us by giving it a like, clicking subscribe, and hitting the notification bell. Thanks for watching.